What's the biggest cause of hyperinflation? And do you think inflation generally is inevitable?
So I think some degree of inflation is perhaps not inevitable, but favorable because it helps the economy to grow, right? If you have a dollar sitting in your bank account and it is losing value at some hopefully quite moderate rate, then you are incentivized to go make better use of that dollar than it'll have just sitting in your bank account. Where you run into issues is where inflation starts to run away and where you have the government starting to print money and devalue the currency just in order to keep up with expenses, for example. So in both of these cases, Argentina and Venezuela, you had these sort of leftist, socialist, in the case of Venezuela, certainly be comfortable calling it a dictator in place for a long time in the form of Hugo Chavez. In Argentina, it was kind of a more democratically elected governmental situation, but you nonetheless had these very sort of leftist, socialist folks in power for a very long time, and they ran up huge bills for the country. Sometimes in order to, really invest in sort of social welfare, sometimes in order to almost pretty directly buy votes. A lot of corruption going on as well. And then at some point, you've got to pay those bills. And the easiest way to do that at some point is to print a whole boatload of money and just keep adding zeros to the end of your local currency bills. And that's what both situations have done and were doing at the time, certainly, that I was trading their debt. Venezuela, it's worth saying, much more so than Argentina. I think while I was on the desk trading these things, I think Venezuela was genuinely experiencing hyperinflation, which is a very, very high bar. Argentina was more on the order of like 40 to 50% inflation at its highest at the time. But,
Wow.
all of this, I think, helps put in context some of what in the United States people have been worrying about for the last couple of years in terms of taming inflation and this fear that, we're facing runaway inflation. I'm a lot less worried about that in the United States. Inflation is sort of topped out at high-ish single digits in the United States, and it seems like it's coming under control now, which is nowhere near the type of dysfunction that you've seen in these other countries.